The game, but another survivor of what is essentially a 70-minute game after the 20-minute pause, of course, is going to be Fnatic's victorious Reckless. And I got to think, absolutely stunning performance from you coming in on the Ezreal for game 2. My first question for you, how do you deal with playing such a long game and having such a back and forth exchange between the two teams?
I don't think necessarily like playing a long game is something new to anyone, but I think the pause was kind of tough to deal with, and I think we kind of lost focus somewhere in between, and I think that's something that shouldn't really happen at this point of my career personally, and for us as a team, so I was a bit disappointed that we weren't able to perhaps control the game even after the pause, because I felt before the pause we were actually like doing pretty well, but then after we just had this 10-15 minutes where nothing was really happening on the map, and I think that's something that's should be better in the future, but it was also good that it happened, because then if it were to happen perhaps in a more important match such as a playoff game or even at Worlds, then you're more ready to deal with it in the future. Yeah.
So speaking of the future, it seems like coming last week you guys picked Kha'Zix for Spirit every game. You seem to have one very specific strategy in mind. This week in your 2 games you seem to have shown a bit more flexibility. What has your focus been on in pick and bans, and how has it kind of changed between the 2 weeks?
Yeah, so as you said yourself, I think last week we had a lot of problems in draft, and I think that was hurting us a lot, especially in the series against H2K, where they pretty much just prepared blindly into what we were playing the day before, and it happened once again, right? So in this week we've been working a lot on making sure that we actually adapt in draft, and it's not so much just theorizing beforehand and then following a certain script, because I think in general, that's not really going to work out in the long run anyways, because when you play the longer series, you need to be able to be versatile as a team and play a multiple amount of champions. So for us playing 2 different styles kind of in the games today, I think it was really, really good for us that we were able to kind of transition this week's practice onto the stage and making it work.
So moving forward, barring any major pauses, what do you think is the biggest focus? Is it just going to be that adaptability in the series? It seems like you guys have been more comfortable as a whole, but really what are you going to look to in the coming weeks to improve on most?
I think in both of the games were quite long. Even though our comps were scaling in some ways, I would definitely say that we need to work on closing out the games faster. I think even the first game we had so much control that we should have taken more control of the game than what we did. And in the second one, as I said, we lost a lot of focus in between the pause, which was a good learning experience in itself. But I think mainly the focus should be on continuing the versatility in the draft and closing out games faster.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking to me. That's going to do it for us here on the Interview Lounge. We're going to toss it over to Shox and the rest of the team at the desk to give you full insight into that very long best of 2.